I have the evidence of most of the victims who have actually filled out a DOD survey about why they didn't report. The number one reason given was they didn't think the chain of command would do anything. And the second reason given was they either feared or they had witnessed retaliation.
There was a time when New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand was confident she would be able to sway enough of her fellow lawmakers and change how the military handles sexual assault cases. But this week, her current hopes were dealt a serious setback in the Senate. It's a fight she has plenty of allies standing by her to fight, including those who still insist the Obama administration and military leadership change how they investigate and prosecute sexual abuse. They would say, stop hiding, start punishing. Our guest was the Air Force chief prosecutor who retired from service last year, fed up with how poorly the military justice system was working in these areas. Welcome, Colonel Don Christensen, back to MidPoint. Colonel, we appreciate your time and we thank you so much for joining us once again. We said we were going to follow this story and we are staying on it. Only 49 senators voted in support of the bill this past Tuesday. How much of a disappointment was that, and did you sort of expect it?
Well, obviously it's a disappointment when you don't win, but we'd actually got 50 senators supported the bill. We knew going in we had a challenge because last year we had 55, but we lost 10 of those votes through elections and retirements. We didn't lose a single one of the 45. They all stayed with us. We picked up 2 who voted against us last year, and then we picked up 3 new Senate members. So in a way, it was a victory. Once again, we had the majority of the Senate say enough is enough.
Why then does a bill like this fail when it would seem to make sense? Because the whole onus is, in case people don't know, what you're trying to do is say, look, let's take this out of the military chain of command of justice. Let's put it into the hands of those who actually handle these cases. Let's actually make people accountable. What's the roadblock here?
The roadblock is DOD obstruction. The generals are afraid to give up any kind of power. They really are novices about what they're talking about. They really don't know the military justice system. And instead of working with Senator Gillibrand to create a fair and impartial justice system, they are stopping any kind of progress.
So how do you force this then? Because you're at that point now, 50 votes, it's failed again. So what's the next step?
Well, the next step is we got to convince a few more senators that this is the right thing to do. We had a lot of conversations. Senator Gillibrand had a lot of conversations with senators new to the Senate and who had voted against in the past. There are a number of them, I would say very close to 10, that are right on the edge of voting for us. And we just need to push them over to supporting survivors and supporting fundamental change.
Something that's interesting, every senator has a military officer assigned to them for protection. Is there any doubt in your mind then people whisper, people talk? There's a little leaning going on here and there to vote against it and keep it the way it is.
Yeah, MLAs, military legislative assistants. Every senator has one, and they absolutely are part of the DOD propaganda machine. Many of them are there just to make sure the DOD message gets across to these senators.
Now, let's talk about propaganda machine for a moment. In a study released in May, the percentage of military personnel said they were victims of sexual assault dropped dramatically over the past 2 years to about 27%. Now, that's a Rand Corporation study. That's what the Pentagon is saying. We don't need this bill. We don't need this idea because it's all working. Everything's just fine. Is that part of the propaganda?
That is part of propaganda. Look, in 2010, we had about 20,000 survivors of sexual assault. 2012, it shot up to 26,000. 2014, it dropped back down to 20,000. 20,000 is not an acceptable number. And to the degree we're getting things better, it's because people like you, it's because people like Senator Gillibrand and organizations like us are putting pressure on the military to do something. The military's had 20 years to do something and they have failed.
Has the president, in your opinion, then simply reneged on a promise?
Absolutely. The president said that he had survivors' backs. He said he gave the military a year to take care of this. A year and a half later, he has not spoken out on the subject, and I fear that he is fallen prey to listening to the same generals that have been misleading the American people for the last 20 years. Do
you fear that sexual assault is just the tip of an iceberg and there are other things being hidden by military justice and those in the Pentagon?
You know, absolutely. If there were not a single sexual assault case in the military, I would strongly support reform of our justice system. Our justice system is archaic. It's unfair to an accused. It's unfair to victims. Leaving serious crimes such as murder, rape, and child abuse to be decided by general officers is insane when we have prosecutors who can make these decisions.
15 seconds. How ashamed are you of your military?
I'm proud of the men and women that serve. I'm ashamed of the leadership that's obstructing change.
And it is a story that we have watched before. We will continue to watch because, quite frankly, I have heard too many stories. We have done too many interviews with people who continue to be victimized, and the military needs to understand this. Colonel Don Christensen, thank you so much for your time, sir. We will stay in touch, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Coming up next, let's say thanks to a couple of, no, let's say thanks to one type of person in our life who sometimes has to put up with more than any human being can mortally stand. Next on MidPoint.